Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a very special Open Tables International Mandela Effect Conference Minisode. This is a bonus episode, if you will, a discussion on a person that really has had a lot of influence in the modern day Mandela Effect, and it's not Fiona Broom, ladies and gentlemen, not the person you would think we're going to be discussing, not at all. One very popular topic is the simulation theory and the Mandela effect. And we're going to get into that today and where that may have had a little earlier start than you may very well know. But before I do, ladies and gentlemen, of course, as you see, I've got a wonderful team of people hanging out here with me. I've got Shane Robinson from Unbiased and On the Fence. How you doing, Shane?
I'm doing wonderful. Welcome to everybody.
Glad to have you here, my friend. We've got Christopher Anatra. You know him as the quantum businessman. How have you been, Mr. Chris?
The Mandela effects keep flying at me, but I'm working through it, so it's all good.
Man, they've been on an uptick lately. And of course, last but not least, we have the one and only Cynthia Sue Larson of Reality Shifters.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Glad to be back. And sorry I missed the last episode, but something came up. But now I'm back. Glad
But
to
now
be
you
here.
get her on a bonus video. How about
Yeah.
that? That's awesome.
So one thing that we have discussed a number of times as a group, and I'm sure as individually, is the simulation theory. And that's a very popular idea amongst Mandela Effect believers, understandably so, right? But it's not exactly a brand new concept, is it, Cynthia?
No, and we've been looking at the ideas. I guess I'll say the name. Philip K. Dick's ideas have been resonating deeply with us. And it goes back to a talk that he gave in France back in September 1977, where he did a big reveal that was much more than little things he'd leaked out in the various short stories that he's written that contributed to so many masterful works of fiction and science fiction, fantasy. Things like, boy, I don't even know where to start. Blade Runner, Minority Report, Man in the High Castle, all of these and much more. So Philip K. Dick definitely had some big ideas about the simulation theory. Maybe we could play a little bit about what he's talking about, get a sense of it.
I submit to you that such alterations, the creation or selection of such so-called alternative presence, is continually taking place. The very fact that we can conceptually deal with this notion, that is, entertain it as an idea, is the first step in discerning such processes themselves. But I doubt if we will ever be able in any real fashion to demonstrate, to scientifically prove that such lateral change processes do occur. Probably all we would have to go on would be vestiges of memory, fleeting impressions, dreams, nebulous intuitions that somehow things had been different in some way, and not long ago, but now.
Mais je doute d'être jamais capable de démontrer réellement.
We might reflexively reach for a light switch in the bathroom only to discover that it always had been, in another place entirely. We might reach for the air vent in our car where there was no air vent, a reflex left over from a previous present.
So in that clip, he was discussing the idea of the simulation theory in the Matrix, right? That's something that, once again, that's 1977 that's being discussed, right, Chris?
Yeah, what's interesting is that when you look at the transcript, he actually used the word matrix twice. And
really?
Yeah, and I'm just going to read part of what he said, but he said that in fact, plural realities did exist superimposed onto one another like so many film transparencies. What I still do not grasp, however, is how one reality out of the many becomes actualized in contradistinction to the others. Perhaps none does, or perhaps again, it hangs on an agreement in viewpoint by a sufficiency of people, more likely the matrix world, the one with the true core of it being determined by the programmer. He or it articulates, prints out, so to speak, the matrix choice and fuses it with actual substance, the core or essence of reality. So we see that Philip K. Dick, and we'll put a link to his YouTube video of a talk that he gave in Metz, France. Around the 23-minute, 52-second mark is where he starts talking about this. And he uses the word matrix. So back in 1977, when he gave this speech, there was no dots for anyone to connect. But now we've got the movie, which also paints the picture of a way that the reality may work. So we can start to connect dots. But he was really plugged in. And part of what I was reading.
No pun intended, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he also talks about like the programmer. He talks about the chess game, so to speak, like players on a chessboard. And there's another clip we can play that as well. But basically, the whole concept is like there's two players and they're reprogramming how the game works. And then we see that as a result of Mandela effects. So one chess player may want to insert something. I call them inserting timelines, inserting a timeline to have a certain effect. And then the other chess player has the option now to make his move to counter or do something different. So it's the whole thing with the light and the dark.
Variables along the linear time axis of our universe, thereby generating branched off lateral worlds. I have the impression that the metaphor of the chessboard is especially useful in evaluating how this can be done. In fact, must be. Across from the programmer-reprogrammer sits a counter-entity, whom Joseph Campbell calls the dark counterplayer.
Je pense que la métaphore de l'échec.
God, the programmer-reprogrammer, is not making his moves of improvement against inert matter. He is dealing with a cunning opponent. Let us say that on the game board, our universe in space-time, the dark counterplayer makes a move. He sets up a reality situation of immutable cause and effect. But the programmer-reprogrammer has already laid down his response. It has already happened, these moves on his part. The printout, which we undergo as historic events, passes through stages of a dialectical interaction, thesis and antithesis, as the forces of the two players mingle.
So Shane, in this clip here about the chess game, is talking about people that are, or entities, if you will, that are literally outside of time, right? So this is something that would be like God and the devil. Is that how you would see this?
I actually see the duality as being part of the game. So for me, I see the programmer outside of the game just simply doing what you would imagine a boardroom full of game designers are doing. We got to create this boss level guy. He's got to, be horrible and do all this and bring about, he's as a catalyst for something else. So from us within the game, we seem like, oh, well, that had to be a bad chess move and that had to be a positive chess move, right? But from outside the game, it's like, let's keep this balance going for growth. Because you're not really like sipping on martinis on the beach, you're not growing. We might be enjoying that, but really it's like when we're pushed to our limits. And I think if there is some sort of chess player, grand chess player, or someone orchestrating this whole thing, I think it's coming from probably a more balanced place. It just doesn't feel like that from within the game, a referee, if you would. So someone that's not really taking sides, they're just keeping things interesting, which they're doing a great job, right?
So Cynthia, would that mean that different Mandela effects are offsetting other Mandela effects? Is that possibly what that could be interpreted as?
Yeah, or different people noticing different things. And that's something that I love to refer to the recent 2019 paper that was published showing that there can be an observer of an experimental apparatus, like the double slit experiment, and you've got someone observing the observer. Those two levels of observation can get different results at the same place and the same time. So we now do have experimental proof that shows that subjective observations can be extremely different, like radically different, from trusted observers at the same exact location, the same time. And that's fascinating. To me, it brings into mind kind of what Shane's getting at. Like, I would call it levels of conscious agency, because it's like we can see with our head, we have neurons in the head. It's a focus of awareness. We also have neurons in the heart. We have neurons in the gut. So then you've got like a layer cake situation going on. You've got your head, your heart, your gut. We also have levels of higher self. And as we tune into this amazing, seems like a consciousness structure, it's possible to be observers recognizing different levels of what's going on at the same time. So at these higher levels, we might feel like there's destiny, like there's a decision, like these humans need to play this out. The chess game needs to happen. But then when you're in it, you can feel like you're caught up in it. So this is something that we definitely have access to. And I think Philip K. Dick presents us with the opportunity to look at how does that unfold in the basis of these stories, like Total Recall and Next, which I think is great, where the lead character kept looking at these simultaneous possible timelines and really being a timeline jumper between them, knowing what's going to happen next by having that kind of an above a higher level of conscious agency, and then being able to jump to an adjacent, maybe orthogonal timeline is what Philip K. Dick might call it.
I was going to say, some people might say, well, can you provide an example of what you're talking about? You know, this whole chess game and how it works. And a while ago, I had created a video related to, and it was happening at the time too, like a lot of racial conflict in the United States. And then all of a sudden into our reality pops the 1921 Tulsa race riots, right? Yeah. So for a lot of people, that was a Mandela effect. We never heard of that before. And that caused a lot of tension between the black and the white, so to speak. And then to counter that, all of a sudden, in my reality anyway, there was this play called Aida, which Disney made. It was actually a big Disney hit in this timeline. And Elton John did the lyrics. He did songs for it. It was like, it's a big thing. But that was basically about the love between a white man and a black woman that was like crossing lines. It had to do with ancient Egypt and that whole situation. But it was almost like, here's something negative that happened that could cause conflict. And then, oh, here's something positive that happened to show that there could be love between the races and they don't have to be, you know, separated, and the conflict doesn't have to be there.
Nothing can be altered. There is nothing to decide. No escape, no change of heart, no any place to hide.
Oh, you are all I ever want, but this I am denied. Sometimes in my darkest thoughts, I wish I'd never learned what it is to be in love and have that love return.
So that was something that I had spotted related to how this chess game works. And in that clip that we played, he mentions Joseph Campbell. So Joseph Campbell is an author. He was, you know, there's a lot of things that he's famous for. One of the things he's famous for is something called the hero's journey. And the hero's journey is something that seems to be a repeating type thing about how these actions work. Even that said to George Lucas when he wrote Star Wars, he was greatly influenced by Joseph Campbell in that whole drama of what I would call the eternal struggle, like the dark versus the light and going back and forth. So there's a lot you can learn by just imagining, like, could there be some kind of like outside of the veil that we're aware of, or outside of this reality? I'll call it base reality. Some people might call it the primary matrix, or however you want to look at it. Is there more going on? Like, could this be a Truman Show type thing as well, where we're being observed? And, you know, how are we reacting? So I always tell people, like, you know, always be on your A game, because you don't know who's observing you and how you're reacting to different things. And, you know, you've got soul family outside of this that's observing you and seeing how you're playing the game, so to speak. And if you're going to be able to graduate and get onto that golden timeline, which we're all working towards. So yeah, with his speech, there's like so much, the matrix, chess, you know, chess game, etc.
The Christians believe the same way, that God's always watching you, that there's an entity always watching what you're doing. Those of us who walk in universe, and I know some of you out there understand exactly what I'm saying, There are those of us that literally interact with the universe on a daily basis, interact with God, if you will, this entity on a daily basis, on a minute-to-minute basis. The Christians believe they interact with an entity of such in prayer, an outside entity that has the ability to change the workings of the inner development, simulation, whatever reference you want to call it. There's a number of religions across the board that they carry the same concept with them, that there's a being, an ultimate overshadowing being that's watching down outside of time, that's able to help you or harm you depending on your actions within the game, if you will. Shane, the Philip K. Dick also speaks, and I'm not sure exactly of the clip timestamp for this part, but yeah, I'm stuttering a little bit, I know. But he speaks of the idea as Dolores Cannon is what it reminded me of, how some of us may see, and Cynthia alluded to this, may see a reality and may be on this earth while others are left behind seeing a different reality, perhaps on another earth. I don't think he says other, I don't think he goes to that degree, but it reminded me a lot of Dolores Cannon. How about yourself, Shane? Do you see the same connections there?
Yeah, I can definitely see when she spoke about there would be a split, but it wouldn't be realized by either side of it. So there wouldn't be a split from anyone's point of view, but there would be a sense that, oh, she died believing those weird things she believed. But from her point of view, she moved on to somewhere else that's far greater, and they just think she passed away or something. That's kind of how she explained it, or they moved out of their life. So it's not even necessarily, there might be a version of you that kind of goes along NPC mode, if you will, on that other timeline while your consciousness travels up to the higher one. You know what I mean?
That's true too. And we see this with the idea that we've got a group of us, a community of us that see the Mandela effect. We see this, whereas we've got another group of people out there saying, you're crazy. We don't see anything. And it reminds me a lot of what Philip was saying. Would you agree, Cynthia?
Yes, I do see it. And I think there's an advantage if you're wondering, like, because some people get caught up in, I'm in the wrong world. I remember the yellow sun. I miss it. I don't like this new sun. But I'm a big believer in find the good in where we are and, lean into it. Recognize that you can start experiencing how good can it get. I was just with Paula and Harris, and we were in Colorado at a retreat. Our apartment was locked. She'd locked it from the inside, back and front doors, and something weird was happening. Combination code didn't work on the front door. And it was time, okay, this would have been fine normally, but it wasn't fine because we were packing out. So, but because I know, because I'm who I am, and I'm one of you guys and more dimensional jumpers, basically, Mandela affected, I know that, never mind that Paula knows for sure she locked the back door. I knew that, like, hey, I'm just going to run around back real quick, knowing that even if it is locked, it doesn't matter because I'm aware of the parallel realities. We know that. We know that we can play with that. So I'm basically putting my prayer into God. We have to pack out now. That we're in such a remote location in Crestone, Colorado. No way a locksmith is going to get here. Nobody can help us. It would take, hours. So we need this open now. In other words, the locked door needs to be unlocked now. And I know it's not a trivial request. It's something that I know from, when I'm all lined up in my head, my heart, my gut, my totality. And I knew that it was a done deal. That's
what I was going to ask you. So that walk, after you put that out there, you kind of put the request out there, your walk, you're like almost feeling appreciative that it's going to be open, that it's unlocked for you as you're on the way there, right?
So grateful.
No doubt that when you get there, you're just going to open it.
I believe that she locked it. I know she always does. And I've always tested it. She's very good at locking doors. But I knew
I love
this time. Yeah, it was really cool. It was locked, but it was ajar, which is impossible. So I just slid the sliding glass door open, even though it was in the locked position. And I'm like, thank you. So yeah, I live this way. So you can embrace this, is what I'm saying. And even if you think I'm in the wrong world, like I love what Philip K. Dick said. If you find that this world is bad, you should see some of the others. They can be worse. So be grateful for this.
One of those worst worlds he was in, he spoke of the Christian battle, and they were more freedom fighters opposed to the modern day Christians. In this, Chris, he talks about how he's not sure he lived past 1974 in that timeline. It seems to me we call that today quantum immortality, or the concept of. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, there's
Philip being the first one to bring forth the idea opposed to modern day science saying, hey, look at this.
yeah, and actually these other experiences that we have, like, can we gain access to them all and actually gain the knowledge and so forth? But yeah, and I was going to
deja
mention,
vu.
yeah, deja vu, glitches in the matrix. And I was going to say too, just to add to what everyone's talking about here, around the 27-minute, 50-second mark, he specifically talks about what we know as what we call Mandela effects.
But I doubt if we will ever be able in any real fashion to demonstrate, to scientifically prove that such lateral change processes do occur. Probably all we would have to go on would be vestiges of memory, fleeting impressions, dreams, nebulous intuitions that somehow things had been different in some way, and not long ago, but now. We might reflexively reach for a light switch in the bathroom only to discover that it always had been, in another place entirely. We might reach for the air vent in our car where there was no air vent, a reflex left over from a previous present, still active at a subcortical level. We might dream of people and places we had never seen as vividly as if we had seen them and actually known them. But we would not know what to make of this.
And that's exactly what's happening with the Mandela effect. Whether it's something like, what happened to the cornucopia on my Fruit of the Loom label? Or what happened to, mirror, mirror on the wall? Why has it always been magic mirror on the wall? Or whatever it is. Like, we know that there's something wrong, but is there a way to scientifically prove it? That's why the global narrative just says, oh, you're confabulating, you can't prove it, you're misremembering.
Quit cussing.
But you know what's really cool about
I said quit cussing over there talking confabulating.
Right.
Oh, is that a bad word? Okay, sorry.
That's a 4-letter word in our community.
Yeah. Okay, sorry guys.
I totally forgot my next thought.
But yeah, you've got the global narrative. You've got one group saying, I see this, and another group going, no, you're crazy, and they're able to pull this off, you're saying, Chris.
Yeah, and the question is, like, why to me, this is the biggest phenomenon that must be studied across all of science, across all of philosophy, across all the different teaching arts, but it's completely ignored. So you have to wonder, why is it not just ignored, but looked down upon? So what is the agenda there? Is it possible that governments, or however you want to say, in Latin, govern means control, and mente means the mind, these mind control organizations don't want us. They want to keep us in the box, so to speak. They want to keep us in the cube. But now the 3D cube is expanding into the 4D tesseract hypercube. And we're beginning to unlock all these things and beginning to ask the questions. And it doesn't matter what the global narrative tells us at this point. We're finding answers on our own. And as time goes on, it's becoming more like the light's getting brighter and brighter, so to speak. We're learning more and more about how this reality works and what's behind the veil.
I feel like many of these people you're talking about don't even know what the heck's going on. I feel like, anyway. Maybe at the very top they notice, but a lot of the people I feel like are just so clueless to the fact that the Mandela effect's even happening. One of the things I just remembered, Philip K. Dick was explaining the way the Mandela effect happens in an assortment of ways. And I didn't want that to go unmissed, because you could tell he was really experiencing it. The way when I see Jim Carrey and it just looks like it's wrong, it's not like a Mandela effect. It's just my mind says that's not how it was spelled, So it sticks out in the way Cynthia was talking about grabbing the washing machine and just turning it the way she's always turned it 100 times before, right? And then now all of a sudden, so these are like automatic muscle memory things that, think about that for a minute. It's not even a memory thing, really, like conscious memory. It's like, you're just doing it the way you do it every time. The same way we get in the car and drive it. You've trained
yourself. You conditioned yourself to be a certain way because it was a certain way.
Is there anyone here that wouldn't notice if your steering wheel started working opposite of what it's been working? How confusing would that be, right?
And
Well,
songs change the way that you're used to singing them, you know, like Take Me
Yeah.
Home, Country Roads. And, you know,
Yeah.
it's like when songs change, you know, that's wrong too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of the movies that was based off of one of Philip K. Dick's book was called The Adjustment Bureau.
Mhm.
And the Adjustment Bureau also has a lot of really interesting information, but the whole concept is that we have these scripts like soul contracts or whatever, however you want to call them. And the Adjustment Bureau is somewhere outside of time, kind of nudging us if we go off, you know, go off script, so to speak. And so then that brings up a concept is, are we locked into our script? Can we break out of our script? And then I've also made videos about that as well, because I believe that we can. I believe that like when we come into this world, we do have this script type of thing, and we're going to meet certain people and have certain, you know, we've got a limited amount of free will, but can we really like take that to the next level, so to speak? So there's the whole concept of unlocking your script, and that's in that movie. Matt Damon eventually figures out how to do that. You know, he meets the love of his life, and they figure out how to unlock their script and go their own way. I think in the movie, he was being groomed to be like the next president of the United States. And he decided he didn't want that. Instead, he wanted to be with the love of his life. And he was able to change that script.
Most people live life on the path we set for them, too afraid to explore any other. But once in a while, people like you come along who knock down all the obstacles we put in your way. People who realize free will is a gift you'll never know how to use until you fight for it. I think that's the chairman's real plan. That maybe one day we won't write the plan. You will.
So yeah, there's just so many different concepts that
goes into a debate that's been going on since the Greek and Roman and probably since the beginning of the philosophy for sure. And that's of course the free will determinism debate.
Yeah, how much do we actually have? Exactly.
Right. That's where I came up with the time locked events idea, which kind of goes back to the idea of the Adjustment Bureau. It's formalizing or putting a persona to the concept that I kind of came up with myself of free will versus that's a whole nother show entirely. But again, these are deep concepts that arise within the questions of the Mandela Effect. It really brings about a lot of philosophical concepts and ideas that interestingly, you don't find in a lot of other paranormal research because it touches so many aspects in trying to define what it is, how it works, all these different things. It almost seems sci-fi. One thing that blows my mind, and Chris, you touched upon this a moment ago too. You've got people who will say, oh, well, it's just the Berenstain Bears. It's just a kid's book. It's just a movie title. It's just a word. It's just... I don't care if it's just a letter on a book. Reality itself has changed. That should be huge. I don't care if it's one example or a pile of examples. I don't care if it's a kid's book or a note on the ground. Reality is different, then that's huge. That's not supposed to happen. I don't see how people can say, oh, well, it's just, it's not just anything. It's just reality not working the way reality is supposed to work.
We've been lied to, folks.
Yeah, I even find that with my clients because like for a while it was like who was changing the Haas avocados to Haas avocados, that kind of a thing. And then eventually it's like it's not important anymore. It's like, oh, well, maybe I was just wrong all this time. Maybe I always thought it was HAAS, but I can see it's always been Haas. So yeah, so what do you do with the information? You know, is it like a splinter in your mind, like Morpheus said in the Matrix movie? Does it happen like a splinter in your mind? You need to find the answer.
You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life, that there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind.
Or do you just be like, it doesn't really affect me? Haas or Haas avocados, Macintosh or McIntosh apples, whatever. I could have been wrong all this time. But yeah, so for people like us and everyone that's watching this, we don't take that for an answer. Like we go beyond that, right?
Right.
That's exactly why we have the conference, because we can get together and we don't have to sound crazy around the people. It just feels so good to let it all out, you know what I mean? And to see you guys in person, you know?
And it's always an adventure. And of course, this year's theme, wonderfully enough, is adventures in consciousness. And we've been talking about Philip K. Dick today. Of course, he's had many adventures in consciousness. Cynthia, looking forward to some fun adventures in consciousness this November.
Absolutely. And I'd love to hear from the speakers that each have their own individual subjective experience. I think that's where it gets so marvelous, just like listening to Philip K. Dick. But all of the speakers that we have at our conferences seem to do such a good job of touching into what's meaningful for them. So this is not just random, strange things that seem to be running amok, but it's looking for what's going on and what's the meaning in each person's reality. And to me, that's where it gets powerful, because then when we come together in person and can share each of our own unique individual experiences, we come away with something far greater, as well as this deep connection and a real sense of meaning and purpose in life in general. It just goes from starting off at a place where, gosh, the world is messed up, things seem crazy, and then you get together with all of us and you come get back home recharged, refreshed,
and hopeful.
And hopeful, yes.
That's the big part right there.
And you jump timelines too.
Oh, yes.
Totally.
Yeah,
so what kind of adventures have you had at conferences, Chris? At the Mandela Effect conferences specifically?
Like at the past conference?
Yes, at the past conferences. What kind of adventures have you had so far that you could tell our audience about?
You know, there's a lot of things. The biggest thing for me has to do with time. And even when we're talking right now, like at my office, there was an issue with the clocks being off, so to speak, all of a sudden. For some reason, my computers are 2 minutes faster. I look at my phone and it's giving me a time, and my computer is 2 minutes behind that. So it's like you reboot, it's like, what's going on? You know, why is my computer? So there's definitely a lot of time anomalies, time distortions that happen. And I've been finding things like that are happening to me too, like on a personal basis. I'll tell you something that happened to me about a month or so ago. I haven't told anyone this, but basically I was watching this show. I was by myself watching this show.
This show?
No, it wasn't this show. It was a Netflix show. And all of a sudden, like for an instant, I felt disoriented. And then I was like, okay, again. And I was back in time 20 minutes because I was watching the show and I was like, is this like a flashback? Like, why are they doing the same thing that they just, it was like a dance scene and they were dancing and it was like ballroom dancing type of a thing. And I'm like, are they flashing back to, like, it didn't make any sense. And it kept going and going. And I'm like, I watched this whole thing already. So, and I think like when it comes to time, and, you know, I say there's a lot of you out there that watch this, you may not even realize it, but you may be time travelers to some extent and not actually even realize it. But so for me, like there was a lot of things dealing with time and time being off and like giving us clues again to the way the reality works and how we all can help each other in different ways, you know, sometimes even outside of time, you know, our higher selves or eternal self, however you want to say that, it is existing outside of time, is not bound by linear time like we are. So yeah, so for me, when you get those types of things, and I had a conversation with someone that was a time traveler and all that, but yeah, it's, so for me, the time, especially at the last conference we had here at my office, and my office building is still recovering from all of the time distortions that happened. We're almost back to normal. As soon as I can get my computer synced with my phone and my servers, we'll be good. But right now, everybody's off right now. So,
wow.
So the IMEC brick and mortar, basically our home site, is having time anomalies.
Yes, yes, and
that's awesome.
I don't want to blame anyone, but maybe a lot of the people at the conference had something to do with that. And I've been also experiencing time loops. And I believe that when you experience time loops, you're granted the ability to get it right. They're almost like practice runs. So I'm having the awareness of my day going on, and I'm like, I get the awareness. This is the last time. This is the 12th time loop, isn't it? And it's like, yep, this is the 12th one. So everything that happened today was like on the highest potential. And a lot of that is because of the abilities, I call it higher self trading. like our higher selves are all helping each other energetically. We've got blueprints for different abilities, so to speak. So if you come to the show, you don't know what kind of blueprints you're getting. Like it's all positive. It's all things that you may be looking for. And then somehow they can integrate into your life, you know, on a level that your lower self may have no idea, but your eternal self, your higher self is like, yeah, go to the conference. We're going to get more abilities, almost like a gamer. Like, yeah, we're going to get more game. We're going to get more inventory. We're going to get blah, blah, blah. So yeah, definitely come if you can. If you feel pulled, there's a reason for that.
Shane, what about you? Have you had some fun adventures in consciousness or in conference with the Mandela Effect conference that you've attended so far?
Absolutely, yeah. That first one in Ketchum, on even it started on the way there. We started having all these synchronistic things happening and Mandela effects and song changes. I think we talked about one in the video. There was a change to the Elton John song, like the morning of the conference, and yeah. So it was a super magical time. And then once we got there, and I felt the energy of the whole group, I just had no idea it could be so awesome. And so for me, it was just getting together with all the people. That were just as excited to meet me as I was to meet them. And so that to me was just making that connection was really huge.
I gotta say that was probably the most magical adventure, that first one. Now, don't get me wrong, all of them have been magical adventures. Adventuring to Connecticut, that was an adventure in and of itself for me. I enjoyed it absolutely immensely. It was wonderful. I had a great time there. But Shane, you're right. Having the ability to sit down and talk in person with people.
And intuitively, we all met right then, right? So that was our first time all
Yes.
meeting and hugging each other. And
Yeah.
I think on an intuitive level, we knew,
Yeah.
what the big force behind all of that,
I think
Sorry
at
to
some
interrupt.
level we knew something. Oh, not at all, not at all. I think we knew something was coming, and that's one thing I look forward to these conferences. Not only meeting you guys out there watching now, but seeing the team again. I only get to physically see these guys when we have these in-person events, and there's just it's so amazing. Like finding old friends again. Like I don't even know how to explain that.
Oh yeah,
There's
everybody can
a
feel it. Yeah.
yes. And that goes back to the second point I was going to make, Shane, and it goes back to the first conference in Ketchum. There was a magic that I'm sorry, we haven't been able to replicate it. I don't think we ever will because I think it was the area. But there was a magic, a feeling that week that I've never before and never since felt. It was so strong. I had people tell me they felt it from the moment they entered the city that we were in. Okay. There was a feeling, a energy, a emotion there that was so binding amongst the people. Everyone got along, everyone had a great time, everyone had something to talk about. And again, the biggest adventure is being able to share your adventures with those around you and knowing that you're not going to be called crazy or stupid or wrong or ridiculed because that can't be real or true. No, at the conference, you're going to find people going, really? No way. Check this out. This happened to me. I've
Find
never
your
told
tribe,
anyone.
really. That's really what it is. It's finding your tribe, and this is it.
Absolutely, Shane. That's exactly what it is finding your tribe. And to find your tribe, you might have to make an adventure, right? Have to take an adventure to Nashville this year, ladies and gentlemen. Nashville, Tennessee, November 7th through the 10th, 2024. That's right. We have a limited amount of tickets. Make sure you get yours before they run out, and they will run out quick. I can tell you from doing these things a couple years, once they go, and they're gone. So make sure you get yours as quickly as possible. Really great price for the amount of days and amount of stuff we're able to do in those amount of days. Definitely make sure your friends know. Bring you a +1. Let everyone know about the conference. Make sure you go over to imec.world, IMEC.WORLD. Pull up that brand new, revamped, one of a kind, top notch website. They've done an amazing, amazing job of rebuilding this site from the ground up. It looks absolutely fantastic. If I do say so myself, I may be just a little bit very biased, but that's me. But ladies and gentlemen, check our site out. Go over, buy the tickets now before they run out. Secure your spot in Nashville. Music City, folks. How many Music Mandelas can you think of? I can think of a lot. Perhaps there's a clue here in Nashville that we're yet to find. Maybe you'll be able to find it, maybe not, but you don't know if you don't go. An adventure in consciousness, ladies and gentlemen, coming November 7th to the 10th, Nashville, Tennessee, 2024. Would you guys like to add anything to that?
Looking forward to seeing you there. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say, take me home, country road, singular. Take me home to Nashville.
See you guys in Nashville.
On behalf of Shane Robinson of Unbiased and On the Fence, Christopher Anatra, you know him as the Quantum Businessman, Cynthia Sue Larson of Reality Shifters. I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf. Together we are the International Mandela Effect Conference. And remember, until next we meet, ladies and gentlemen. Cynthia, what is it?
Together we go.
Together we grow.
Together we grow. Woohoo!
Bye, everybody.
Love you guys.
Bye.